Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into something that honestly flies right under the radar for a lot of people, but it's absolutely foundational. We're exploring the Ordo Initiationis Christianae Adultorum, or as it's more commonly known, the OICA. Now, if that Latin title sounds a little intimidating, don't sweat it. We're going to completely demystify this theological framework. It is incredibly profound, but to be honest, widely misunderstood in how it's actually practiced today.
So what exactly is the whole shebang about? Well, at its core, the RCIA is the ancient, restored, normative model for all Christian initiation. It was brought back by the Second Vatican Council and officially published back in 1972. But here's the absolutely crucial point. It is not just an instructional checklist. It's not a syllabus of classes you pass to join a club. No way. The text defines it as gradual, communal, and sacramentally ordered. It's designed from the ground up to be a deeply immersive ritual experience that fundamentally changes how a person integrates into the faith.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the restored liturgical vision, then map out the journey of initiation, check out the rites, symbols, and community, dive into sacred time and sacred space, and wrap up with the modern pastoral challenge.
Starting right off with Part 1, the restored liturgical vision.
There's this fantastic core liturgical principle right in the source text. Formation is gradual, progressive, and celebrative. A lot of folks assume initiation is just showing up for a few brief instructional classes on a Tuesday night. But this quote totally shatters that idea. It draws a sharp contrast between our modern assumptions and what the OICA actually demands. It's not merely instructional. It has a deeply ritual and ecclesial character. We're talking about forming a person over time through real community celebration, not just passing on a bunch of information.
Moving right along to Section 2, the journey of initiation.
Okay, so the OICIA breaks this whole initiation process down into 4 continuous periods, or what they call gradus. It's basically a map. First up is the pre-catechumenate. This is a super flexible time, kind of that initial spark of hearing the gospel and first conversion. From there, we shift into the catechumenate. That's the heavy lifting, an extended period of formation that involves minor exorcisms, blessings, and really deep instruction. Period 3 is purification and enlightenment. Think of this as a much more intense, retreat-like phase that usually lines up with Lent. And lastly, mystagogy. That's the integration phase stretching from Easter all the way to Pentecost. So yeah, it is a massive, sustained journey.
But hey, every epic journey needs some major milestones, right? Layered right on top of those 4 periods are 3 distinct ritual steps. Think of these as the critical doorways bridging the different phases and propelling the candidate forward. Step 1 is the entrance into the catechumenate. That's the first formal acceptance. Step 2 is election or the enrollment of names, where the candidate is officially marked as chosen for the upcoming sacraments. And Step 3, that's the ultimate goal, the big celebration of the sacraments of initiation, baptism, confirmation, and First Eucharist, all happening at the Easter Vigil.
Which brings us to Section 3, rites, symbols, and community. Here's the thing, initiation is absolutely not a private solo event. It is an ecclesial action. The whole church is involved, and it's a team effort with very specific delegated ministries. The bishop is the norm giver. He oversees the whole diocesan process and presides at election. The presbyter or pastor handles the day-to-day rites like scrutinies. Deacons are right there assisting. Catechists do the vital heavy lifting of doctrinal instruction. And the godparent or sponsor is literally walking alongside the candidate for the entire journey. Every single role is coordinated to integrate that person into the body of Christ.
To really picture how this community aspect works, just imagine the rite of election. Typically, this happens on the first Sunday of Lent, right there in the cathedral, with the bishop himself presiding. It is a huge, diocesan-wide celebration where the catechumens actually have their names formally inscribed in the Book of the Elect. It's such a powerful visual. It really drives home the point that they aren't just joining the local parish down the street. They are stepping into the universal church.
And beyond those big primary steps, the process is just packed with this incredible symbolic pedagogy. Take the traditio and reditio, for example. That's the physical handing over and then returning of the creed in the Lord's Prayer. It's this beautiful ritualized reception and echoing back of the faith. Plus, you've got pre-baptismal anointings, the ephete rite, which symbolically opens the ears to hear the word and the mouth to proclaim it. There are even specific adaptations for kids of catechetical age, and simplified forms for the sick and dying so that full initiation is never delayed by circumstance. It's profound formation through tangible, physical experience.
All right, on to Section 4, sacred time and sacred space.
So if you look at the timeline, the absolute core of this whole thing is what the source material calls the Paschal center. Literally everything flows from and toward Easter. That pre-catechumenation phase, it usually happens flexibly during ordinary time. But Lent serves as this intense crucible of purification, specifically marked by those scrutinies we mentioned. The Easter Vigil itself is the exclusive, normative moment for actually receiving the sacraments. And it doesn't just abruptly stop there. It spills right over into the 50 days of the Easter season for mystagogy. Time itself becomes a teaching tool here.
And you know, just like time is sacred, the physical space is too. The OICA strongly prefers that these Easter Vigil sacraments happen at a dedicated font. And get this, it explicitly highlights a preference for immersion. Why immersion? Because physically going completely under the water is this visceral, visible sign of descending into the tomb, dying to the old self, and then rising up in resurrection with Christ. The physical space and the action just perfectly match the theology.
And finally, Section 5, the Modern Pastoral Challenge.
Now, we really have to look at the friction between this beautiful, integrated vision from the text and the modern obsession with, well, administrative convenience. The text calls for these long, carefully ordered periods, steps, and ministries, all pointing toward Easter over an extended time. But in the real world, there's this immense pressure to just shorten it all, to cram this profound, life-altering journey into a neat, predictable 9-month academic calendar, purely because it's easier to manage.
And when that grand, gradual vision breaks down, the source texts show us that very specific pastoral failures start to crop up. Sponsors, who are supposed to be these active, formative guides throughout the entire journey, often get reduced to just honorary godparents who basically just show up for the photos on the final day. The Lenten scrutinies end up being poorly celebrated, or the parish assembly totally misunderstands them. And honestly, perhaps the biggest tragedy is mystagogy. Once Easter Sunday wraps up, that vital 50-day integration period is almost completely neglected, leaving the new Catholics to basically fend for themselves.
Which brings us right to the ultimate question we really need to ask ourselves. When we look at how initiation is actually practiced today, are we celebrating a true paschal journey, or are we just checking boxes? The OICIK gives us an astonishingly rich blueprint for transforming lives. Whether we choose to fully embrace it, well, that's entirely up to us. Thank you so much for joining me for today's explainer, and definitely keep asking great questions.